Welcome to the Resistance Broadcast, everybody. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our Monday show, which means it's time to talk about news that's going on in Star Wars, Galaxy Far, Far Away. If you are a writer and you've written anything, you have a really good chance of writing for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So we will get into that in a little bit. Joining me, as always, is James and Lacey. How you guys doing? We are living in strange times, but as always, kind of like I said last week, it's nice that we have this because this feels normal, and escaping to Star Wars, even if it's talking about Star Wars, is kind of a nice vacation from all the chaos out there in the world. But how you guys holding up? How you guys doing?
You know, it is funny. I was watching something where it was like, they were talking about how all these broadcasters are like, how are we going to do this from home? And it was like, podcasters are like, hold my beer, right? Yeah. It's like, we've been doing this forever. No, it's kind of funny too, because I think the world going into this, how do we telecommute is helping people talk and have this discussion. So a lot of like people who, I don't know, I don't want to say teach podcasting, but their whole thing is not podcasting itself, or is not podcasting about a topic, but they podcast about podcasting. They're getting a lot of recognition, and people are looking at them and saying like, how do you guys do this? You know, and I've found new people to follow and pay attention to. And like, even in the last couple weeks, it's been like, I didn't even know about this website. I didn't even know about this program. Like, these are things people are talking about these days on how to make kind of what we do, which is this like regular teleconference, better. And so you know, in a weird way, it actually kind of like helps the Resistance broadcast.
Yeah.
Lacey?
Oh,
Lacey?
am I going?
We've only been doing this for 2 years, Lacey. You told us just the other week.
Well, I was just thinking about how I haven't really like been like you, where I'm like, oh, I've learned from so many people. I've just learned I'm a really bad friend, and I talk to more people now than I did normally, because it's like you're stuck in your house, so you're like, oh, I need to talk to all these people I haven't talked to in a while. And I also learned that because I wrote summaries of track events in high school, I am now qualified to write a Star Wars show.
Right. Yeah. So we'll get into that in a bit. One thing I will say on top of that, like, I know, Lacey, you did like a virtual happy hour with the coworkers and that sort of thing.
I did.
And I did that with my brother. Like, so me and Kathleen called up my brother and his wife, and we were having drinks for an hour or so. And it was kind of like hanging out after a while. You almost forget that you're doing the video conference. But like, it's weird that that's the new normal now. But I guess that's how our audiences kind of feels when they're in the base with us. So it's good to be doing this as always as well. One thing we have to say, we have to acknowledge, because of what's been going on in the world and the craziness, like, it affects everyone and everywhere, not even, you know, regular people. It can affect people in the industry as well. And I guess Andrew Jack, who was, not a lot of Star Wars fans know who he is, to be honest, but he was the dialect coach for Lord of the Rings, for Star Wars, pretty much all the post George Lucas era Star Wars movies, including The Force Awakens. JJ, I think, was the first one to bring him in. He did Solo. He actually voiced Malak in Solo, and he appeared as Emlot. I believe that's how you say his name, in The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. He passed away from COVID-19, and 76 years old. But apparently everyone who had been speaking about him in Star Wars, you know, Boyega, Eunice, everyone has been saying how generous he was to them on set. He was the one who had to teach Alden how to speak Shriwook, and the dialect, and how to say the crazy, you know, and that sort of stuff. So a big impact on Star Wars, even though he's not a marquee name. But rest in peace to Andrew Jack.
Could you imagine the rumor that was going around when Solo was in production was that Alden needed a coach? Could you imagine if he ends up that he was the coach?
Yeah, I mean, well, he definitely helped with that. And I know he was brought in first for TFA, but that could have been part of it without a doubt.
But do you know what I mean? Like, they were like, oh, they got an acting coach for Alden, but it ends up to be like the guy's just teaching him how to speak.
Just the Shriwook. Yeah. I mean, could be.
I forgot about that whole story, man. What a kind of a dumb thing, you know? It's like, oh, they hired this guy because he was the best out of like, what was it, like 500 people they worked with?
5,000? No, 3,000.
Yeah, so they had like 3,000 people. They picked this guy out the best, and then they bring in an acting coach because he doesn't know how to act. Like, you really think that's the story?
I'm telling you, it could be this. Imagine someone that isn't normally on set sees him with this guy, and he's like, oh, who's that? And they're like, oh, it's his blah, blah, blah coach. And he just hears coach. And then he leaves the set being like, oh, Alden needed an acting coach, and it wasn't an acting coach at all.
Just learning how to speak a little Wookiee, that's all. But R.I.P. to Andrew Jack. Again, you know, so many people are involved in making Star Wars movies and productions and stuff like that. And it's just a reminder there. You know, when you hear a story about this guy's contribution, you don't think about it when you look at the movies and that sort of stuff. But he left his mark, and he will always have that. So, but we do have our regular show to get into here, and we're going to hop into it right now by sending it to James for the Resistance Report. James, what is going on this week?
It's the Resistance.
This week. What do we got, guys? Looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series, the upcoming Disney Plus series, has a new writer. I'm going to let us speculate a little bit on what this guy is doing, but Joby Harold has been brought on to fix, punch up, rewrite. Let's get in and talk about it. I think the biggest news coming out of this is everybody saying, who? What? Who's this guy? What's his story? What's he worked on? We barely know. So, John, I'm going to let you go in first on this one because this is kind of, the Star Wars Newsnet article was written by you, so let's hear what you were able to pull together on this one.
Could you imagine you were like, Lacey, you didn't write this article. Why don't you go first?
Yeah.
So, you know, I had to write the news report on it, but I did a little bit of subjective writing into it as well, my thoughts with it and that sort of thing, because it is an odd choice. You know, so you had the situation being the movie got turned into a series, and then around the time of that decision, they bring in Hossein Amini, who has a solid track record of writing TV, a lot of successful shows and a good resume, and he got jettisoned in January, right around those rumblings of Kenobi's in trouble and that sort of thing. And now we hear that they're bringing in this guy, Joby Harold, and I will not be surprised if there was a lot of Googling going on with the name Joby Harold, because if you probably polled 1,000 Star Wars fans and said, who is Joby Harold yesterday from when we're recording this, 1,000 would say, I have no idea.
I was going to say 999. Yeah.
Right. So Variety is saying that according to their sources, multiple sources, though they didn't get a response from Lucasfilm or Joby Harold's representatives on this. They're saying he's been tapped to take over the writing duties for the series. And, you know, again, this is a situation where when you look back to interviews with Hossein Amini and what his involvement was, he said, well, they had scripts and we have to work it into a TV series, and we're, got the story, pretty much the framework set up, but we need to make it into a series. So if he got fired and they're bringing in this guy, they're in a similar situation. And then you think back to Ewan McGregor saying, oh, the scripts are great, they just want to make them a little better. So I don't think this is a complete wash or a complete rewrite or anything like that. But what makes me scratch my head is that this guy, Joby Harold, with all due respect to him, I don't think anyone would argue the fact that it's a surprising choice, being that his only two writing credits are a Hayden Christensen movie from 2007, where he plays a guy who's having surgery and he has anesthesia awareness, or the Jax Teller King Arthur movie from a few years ago, both not exactly The Godfather, being brought in. So for me to think that this is the guy that they picked to bring in for a project that cannot be a misfire for Lucasfilm. This is such an important project for Lucasfilm right now when you think about the fact that they have 0 movies publicly actively in development. The only other project that's new that's in development is Cassian Andor, which they already had to bring in another writer, Tony Gilroy, back from Rogue One to work on. this cannot be a misfire. So it honestly, I'm a very positive Star Wars fan. I can't shed a lot of bright light on this here because this is a strange choice to me, that this is the guy you're trusting to fix your scripts for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series when he's never written television. They even make it clear he's never written television. Why would you bring in a guy who's has to convert a movie script to stretch out to episodic TV who's never written television before? That blows my mind. It really does. So it makes me a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie. So I have a lot more to say on this. I want to get Lacey in on this, but that was my initial take out of the gate. Just really scratching my head at the decision. It's possible maybe he knocks it out of the park. You know, no one knew who Irvin Kershner was, and he directed The Empire Strikes Back, and it's my favorite Star Wars movie. Granted, that's directing versus writing, but still, I got to try to give the guy a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. But it makes me nervous. It's a very curious thing. That's all I got to start anyway.
So am I just going in?
Yeah, apparently Lacey doesn't know how this works.
I think you should.
Well, she thought you were going to take it and then say, well, that's a good point, John. That's actually, you know what, John? That's a great point. Let me double down on that, John. That's a really great point.
All right.
100.
Now, Lacey,
Okay.
So apparently I don't know how this goes.
No, that was my bad.
I like your take, John. I'm gonna toss it over to Lacey real quick.
Like a deer in headlights. I was like,
Yeah.
at least we look better on YouTube for the people watching.
yeah, hopefully. They get to look at my dumb face being like, anyway, so, yeah, John, I agree with you 100%. When I got this announcement or saw it come across my feed, I was like, who is that? Which, admittedly, I don't know a lot of writers and stuff right off the bat unless they've done big projects. So, like you said, I got to give the benefit of the doubt. But once I got into that Google searching, which a lot of people did, I was like, this guy's literally done nothing. And you can't help but just wonder because there are so many people that they could have gone with, you know, that have great projects like under their belt that could give some type of life to these scripts. It just makes you kind of wonder, does he know someone? Did he win a raffle? Like what? Yeah. What happened that this?
Did he win a raffle?
Like what happened that this guy got it? And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little disappointed that they didn't get a woman writer. Like this could have been a really easy way to get some diverse voices in here. And like you have Deborah Chow who's already directing, like that would have been killer for me. So I was a little disappointed by that because again, is it a thing that nobody wants to work on Star Wars, which might be part of it? We've had this conversation before. Or is it that he did something that they really like? Either way, I have no idea. I'm happy to hear updates about Kenobi because as you guys know, I'm so excited for this project. I like cried when they finally announced it over the last summer. So as long as I keep getting updates about it, I'm hopeful that we'll get a great project out of it. It's just kind of a little mind-boggling that they chose this guy. A little weird.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, James?
So just straight up, I 100% agree with what you guys are saying. I mean, John laid it out for both of us, Lacey. I'm totally in that camp. If there is like a silver lining or a positive way to look at this, I keep trying to think of other times where there's been, first time people, first time directors or first time, writers or something like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I even remember when we were discussing when some of the Mandalorian directors were announced and stuff, we're like, who are these people? Who is Deborah Chow? Like you look at her history, you're like, I don't know who this person is,
Bryce Dallas Howard never directed anything.
Again, sure. Yeah, I was going to say like people looked at her and they're like, oh, good choice. It's like, is it though? I mean, like we all know who she is, but it's like, we definitely don't know. This is like getting Arnold Schwarzenegger to direct. It's like I don't know if he's ever directed before.
Or govern. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true too. Maybe that was a bad choice.
I will do it.
It reminds me of Back to the Future where he's like Ronald Reagan. He's like the actor.
Yeah, right.
Talking about?
Yeah.
Jane Wyman's first lady. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he says, "Who's the vice president? Jerry Lewis."
Yeah. Right.
But no, I mean, there is always that. You never know what's going to happen, and it's kind of funny too because you look at something like Ryan Johnson, for instance. Like,
Yeah.
we got you're handing episode 8 off to someone who's done like 2 features. It's like, is that really the best bet? And
Sure.
I mean, there's arguments, always going to be arguments. I mean, also, too, even with Colin Trevorrow, too. Like, people were like, are you really going to hand off the reins to him? But he went from, like, one movie that did absolutely nothing to his next movie being, like, top 10 box office of all time, So it's like,
Yeah.
sometimes there's things that just, whatever it is, like The Pitch, we loved him. We think he's the right guy for the job. I don't know. It's hard to say. This guy, too, another thing, if you look at his notes, he has 2 things that he's been writers on, right? 2 things that have come out. But he has 10 things on his slate, one of which is rebooting the Paramount franchise Transformers. So he's tapped to, like, come up with how they're going to reboot that whole thing. And there was... Now I'm kind of blanking at the moment. Did I mention
Which
that?
is crazy. It wasn't that long ago, Transformers.
2007 was the first one.
Yeah, I mean...
It's not that long.
I mean, I think if you look at it as a whole, you could say, like, hey, we think the Transformers franchise is profitable,
he's writing the next Zack Snyder movie. James, you're probably thinking that's what you were thinking of.
No, it was another franchise that he's been brought on to, like, rework.
Oh, okay.
Well, you guys talk about it. I'll actually pull it up. I can find it real quick.
I just think, Obi-Wan Kenobi, this is a project, and I wrote this in the article, because this is one of those projects that fans have been really hoping for, pulling for, asking for, kind of like we're doing with the Solo sequel, but for a long time, since they said we're making new Star Wars stuff. It's a coveted character, a treasured character, a well-protected character. You got Ewan back since day one, and you don't have a lot of other stuff in the mix. They cannot mess this project up. They just absolutely cannot mess this project up. It has to be a hit. If they bomb this project, which is set up on a tee to be a success with fans because they're ready for it, they're wanting it, you got the actor, you got a good director who you already know killed it with 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, everything's set up for this to be a success, top of the line special effects, budget they'll probably go out the window for, and you bring in this guy as your writer? Like, I don't know. Like, I was Googling today. I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but Hollywood works in weird ways. And like Lacey brought up, like, who did he know? Like, who does he know? And I literally Googled when I'm writing the article, like, I looked up this guy's wife's name. I looked up his name. I Googled that. I Googled them next to Michelle Rejwan, like the live action VP. Mm-hmm. I looked up to see if there's photos of them together at red carpet events or something. I didn't see anything. It's such a head scratcher to me that it has to be one of those things where, like, someone had to owe somebody something. They're like, now you got to help out my buddy what's his name? Joby. Like, I'm forgetting his name right now. Joby Harold. You got to do one for him. So you're gonna give him to Kenobi? Like, what about like a new show? Like, give him Ahsoka. Give him the Ahsoka series. Let him write that. The Kenobi thing cannot be. If they screw this up, it is a complete disaster for Lucasfilm. And I'm not like trying to do like talking head like shock jock stuff here, but this is no joke. Like, this is the one thing that you got to get right, especially when the only things you have left going on are Cassian Andor, which is stumbling if we're being honest, and Mando, which is rock solid. There's nothing else going on. So it just makes me so nervous that they're going to botch this. And I don't understand why this guy, out of all the writers in the world, out of all the movie writers, TV writers that are out there, like, isn't there someone who wrote an episode of Breaking Bad or The Sopranos that wants a job? Mm-hmm. So maybe it is your thing, Lacey. Maybe people are afraid to work on Star Wars. I don't know what it is. But Joby Harold doesn't make me feel good. And I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm positive in the sense that I want Kenobi to be so good, and it needs to be good for Star Wars, because the last thing we need as podcasters and as fans is Kenobi to be bad, and then we got to deal with that backlash. It's just like, they can't mess this up, and I keep repeating myself, but they just cannot screw up this Kenobi project.
My fear right now is that, okay, maybe it's good, but if it's bad, then there's more fuel to the fire of like people at Lucasfilm don't know what they're doing, or like why was this decision made? As soon as this person was announced, everybody was like, what? Like why was that? And now that we have the actual show and it's terrible, like you didn't have the foresight to see it, everybody else did, and that is just that's frustrating. Now if it's a runaway hit, then that's good. But just like you know, like when they lost Lord and Miller and they bring in Ron Howard, it's like we don't really have the leeway right now to take risks. Like, we need to do this. We need to make it good. It's kind of stumbling a little bit, but they shouldn't be taking risks right now with unknown writers that they felt like landed the pitch. They should at this point, if they lost their last writer and they need someone, they need to get the person that's going to bring confidence to everybody. And if inevitably it failed, then they're not going to say, well, you know, at least they brought in like the most expensive or the most well-known writer, you know? I don't know.
Go ahead, Lacey.
Oh, I don't really have anything to add. I was just saying I completely agree. I have no idea who this guy is. Eight
live action projects under the new regime. Total. 5 movies, 3 shows in terms of things that are out, things that are in development. Only 2 didn't have massive production changes in terms of big players, and that's Mandalorian and The Last Jedi. Everything else, I mean, you could say The Force Awakens too, but they had Michael Arndt and stuff. But they got rid of Trevorrow. Rogue One had massive problems. Solo had massive problems. Cassian Andor is like stumbling. Apparently, he was supposed to start filming last October. And
I was reading
rewriting
through
the pilot. Like,
yeah,
it's just crazy.
I was reading through the art book for The Rise of Skywalker, which, by the way, it's very good. You should get it. And all the descriptions were about how rushed the production was. Like, it was like, oh, this was happening on this day, and then they quickly did this, and then JJ needed to make this decision now, and this and this. And I was very surprised at how often in the book Phil mentions how quickly the production was turned around, to the point that they even list out the time frames. He's like, oh, we had this much time for Force Awakens, they had this much time for The Last Jedi, and then by the time he got the movie, he only had this much time for The Rise of Skywalker. And I remember being like, why are we highlighting production problems? But I know it's part of the story, but it's now, I don't know, it just feels like it's now the Lucasfilm story. And all it's doing is fueling that Disney Star Wars stuff, and, you know, Kathleen Kennedy doesn't know what she's doing. Like, that's all that it's helping to like enforce, even if it's not true, only because that's all we're hearing. So it's really hard as a fan to be on the side of like, we're rooting for you, we want you to succeed, we want you to do a good job, and then they're like, okay, so here's this guy that's gonna write the show that everybody's been asking for, and you're like, okay, but why him? And they're just like, yeah, he did this like King Arthur movie, and everyone's like, nobody watched that. So it's just a little like, oh man, like you could have like just give us an honest answer. Is it because no one wants to work on Star Wars? Like, what is it?
Since we are in we're trying to be as positive as possible, I actually did go to the theater to see that King Arthur. And
oh, really?
I did like it and did buy it when it came out.
Oh, nice.
All right.
That's good news.
I know that overall it was not a well-received movie, and it gets a lot of groans. And I even today, I didn't even know this was the case. We were talking about how they're doing another Peter Pan movie from the perspective of Wendy, and me and my wife were talking about some franchises or some like properties that are just like dead. Like every time they try to do it, it doesn't work. And I mentioned King Arthur, even though I liked this one King Arthur. I just think every time they try to do it, the audience goes, I don't care. I don't want another King Arthur movie.
Yeah.
So, but no, I did see it. I thought it was kind of cool the way they made, like, it felt like a video game to me, because they would like get a sword and then they'd be like super powered and stuff. And I was like, this is, I like this. I think it's cool. Jude Law's in it. And, what's his name? Hunnam, Charlie Hunnam, I think.
Well, he's the lead, right?
Yeah.
The
I
guy
just
from
don't
Sons of
remember
Anarchy.
this movie at all.
And then Jude Law is Lancelot, and if I'm remembering correctly.
It made less than its budget. It bombed at the box
Yes.
office.
I don't think it was
didn't do
marketed well because I don't remember it.
They had a Denny's promotion for a few weeks, so you figured it was going to do well. But
You always fall back on that.
you got to because it's ridiculous. But yeah,
They had the
I don't know.
Excalibur omelet.
Hey,
There it is. That's actually not. That's not bad. That's not bad. No, you're right though, James. I mean, it's possible that this winds up still being really good, and this guy becomes a great, writer.
We
and
want
this-
it to. We want it
Yeah.
to be good.
Yeah, it's just like I don't think we're being realistic here. That this is an absurd choice for this very important project.
Yeah, for a few reasons. And I think, like I said before, the biggest one is just when we look back at this, we're gonna be like, you didn't see that as a problem, from day one, literally as soon as it was announced,
Right.
everybody was like,
Right.
there's
Right.
no
Right.
faith in it at all.
Yeah.
But speaking of faith in Star Wars properties, let's talk about The Mandalorian right now, because contrary to everything that we were just saying, Mandalorian is looking really promising, and we got two stories here. We can kind of combine them, but we can move from one to the other. So last week we talked about Michael Biehn from Terminator fame, I should say, or from The Rock fame, as John would like it to be, has been brought on.
Stand down, Captain.
Yes. And now we know, or potentially know, it's kind of a leak, a little bit more about this character. I'm going to let Lacey take this one. Did you see?
Are you sure about that? You sure you don't want to start with John? I'm just joking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to start with you, Lacey. I'm just kidding. No, yeah, take it away here, because, we know a little bit about this character, and we know, I think we've seen, the rough sketch or the outline of what this character might look like, right?
Yeah, the sketch came from Making Star Wars, and so a lot of people have been curious, who his character is. Is he playing Boba Fett? Who is he playing? Could it be a Dash? Everyone's like, oh my gosh, it could be that character. It's not. He looks like one of the guys from Solo, or one of the guys we see in the Art of Force Awakens book that fought Kylo Ren and stuff. He has this kind of bucket helmet, and he has a gun and stuff. He looks cool. Again, I'm gonna be more interested when I get to see a picture of him than a sketch that someone thinks that's what it looks like. There is some leverage to this, seeing as that's where this announcement came from. So I understand that that's why they have this sketch. But I just get so excited every time they make a new announcement or some type of rumor comes out for The Mandalorian, because this is one thing that everybody agrees on is awesome. And I think that the world needs this right now, is everybody's rallying behind one thing. So this is that one thing. And I don't care who the actor is. It could be Michael Biehn. It could be anybody. And I'm going to be pumped because Mandalorian is great.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with a new bounty hunter, a new character that gets a large amount of focus. I don't really want another Finnick Shand that's there really quickly. They build up the character story. Even in that episode, you barely get that character. If the character shows up for one episode and that's it, I'll be okay, because that's a little bit more like the Bill Burr character and a couple other ones. They're there, they're very in the thing, but I would hate it just for this or the next person we're going to talk about here to show up just for the smallest little thing, and it's man, we had an episode where we talked about this person on Resistance Report, and we've been speculating on this character, and they show up for 10 seconds. But yeah, I realized who this person reminds me of, and I can't find a picture of them, but it's the other member of the crew in Solo that they cut out of the movie. The guy with the Gatling gun.
Oh, I don't remember.
That they cut out of the movie?
Yes. So there was Val and Rio and then there was another character that was supposed to be in their core group, and he was supposed to die on, like in
Vandor?
the fight. Yeah, on where was it? What's the planet?
Vandor?
The mud planet.
No, the mud planet.
Minbin.
Minbin. Yeah, I think he was supposed to die on Minbin, or something along those lines. But they were just like, yeah, he doesn't really have a place, so they just cut him out. And he's in one of the scenes, but he just looks like a random guy who was in the background. They don't really mention. It kind of looks like, so like Han when he first there and he's like, "Who's in charge? You are, Captain." That scene. He's like sitting there right with him, but people just think he's like another trooper that's hanging out.
Right.
Yeah, and
Was
he
it
looks
Matt
like
Smith
this.
by any chance?
What was that?
Was it Matt Smith by any chance?
Yes, it
Oh,
was.
jeez.
Speaking of things I forgot about earlier, the other thing he's rewriting or rebooting is Twilight Zone.
Twilight
thought-
Zone?
Jordan
Jordan
Peele
Peele.
was doing twice.
I know, but
Oh, maybe he's writing an episode or something.
yeah, it says Untitled Twilight Zone Project.
Yeah.
Maybe. Wait, hold on.
Hold up.
Here's the connection. Supposedly they went to Jordan Peele to do a Lando thing or something at some point. Maybe he said, I don't want to do it, but I have a guy that might be a good fit.
Let's hope.
Eh?
It has Jordan Peele's approval.
Jordan Peele, just add us and let us know.
Yeah, I mean this design is very like General Veers on Hoth with the helmet.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
In like the AT-ATs. He has what looks like a blaster holster on his chest, and he's got that giant like auto gun, whatever. And it looks like he's got almost like I forget what you call it, but it looks very like samurai-esque. It's almost like they're trying to do that whole Kurosawa influence thing again,
Right.
and like hammer that stuff home. But I don't know like what this image is based on because I don't want to read too much into it. But the background to me is clearly Tatooine, and I don't know if that's just some kind of template that they slapped them over. But you have moisture evaporators and what looks like two suns in the background. So is this the person who stumbled upon Fennec Shand? Is this someone completely different? Not sure. Like you say, is it a one-off episode where he's going to be almost like, Horatio Sands or somebody who popped in, they were involved and it wasn't very consequential? Or is it somebody who's going to be a big deal? They say he's allegedly a bounty hunter, a part of Mando's past. That sounds very Bill Burr to me. Someone who was a bounty hunter also who he knew. So not really sure, but usually Biehn does play that type of like gruff and tough guy. So maybe he's an aggressor, and maybe Mando, screwed him over back in the day, and he's coming back because he heard about his name going around or something. Not really sure. I mean, the look is kind of cool though, and kind of like what you guys were saying. Mando has not really missed yet, so it's hard for me to be skeptical of anything like this. And of course, it helps that I like Michael Biehn, and it is nostalgic a bit to me. But so is Carl Weathers, like I said last week. So and that worked out. So
Found him.
Oh, you got him?
Corso.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that does look kind of like that. And you know what's funny though, James? It's kind of like that article that came out last week about Neil Scanlon saying they reused stuff that they created or designed that didn't make it into certain projects. And
Maybe they did reuse the costume.
yeah, this could have been something that they.
I mean, he's
Favreau
in the movie
said,
though.
Let me. Yeah. I mean, maybe this guy's an ex-trooper from Minbin. Like, he's ex-Imperial. Who knows?
That does look like the character.
That's what I was
kinda
saying. When I
does,
first saw him, I was like, something's familiar with this guy. I feel like I've seen him before in Star Wars, but I couldn't place him. And then just as I was reading the story, I was like, wait a minute. I know this character.
Yeah.
I've seen him before.
So for our audio listeners, James has just thrown up an image on his phone of that lost character from Solo who does look familiar. Yeah, so this is the actual concept art of the character. A little blurry, but
It does look
try
very
to-
samurai-ish. Like the Kylo Ren
Yeah.
figure and the Stormtrooper figures that they do for
Doesn't it?
Bandai look just like that.
doesn't it? It reminds me a lot of Shredder from Ninja Turtles. You know?
The pants with the shoes.
Yeah.
the dome,
Yeah.
the dome helmet, the skirt-ish type of dressing and that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. Not much else to go about it, but
All right.
interesting.
I'm going to tweet it out here in a second while we're talking about the next story, just as a timestamp for people when they know when we record.
Yeah.
All right. But speaking of The Mandalorian, let's talk about Jamie Lee Curtis potentially being part of the story. So, not that this is their story, but I was listening to another podcast and they mostly talk about movies and stuff. And they heard this news and they were just like, yes, like this show just continues to deliver with actor after actor after actor that people know. It's almost like for a while Star Wars was trying to take this, and we'll talk about this on Thursday, but they were trying to take this take of like hiring unknown actors,
Right.
and occasionally sprinkling in someone that you know. But The Mandalorian was just like, we don't care. Like, if you're famous, if you're a comedian or you know have any sort of like notoriety, send us an email. We want you on the show, right?
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis rumored to be cast in The Mandalorian season 2. John, what are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. It makes me instantly think, a lot of things. One being that she worked with Rian Johnson on Knives Out, and maybe she asked him, what's it like working in Star Wars? And you had to deal with a lot of crap. And he's like, no, it's great, it's worth it. Like, they were trying to call me to get me in there, so maybe he pushed her into it. I don't know, but it's funny when you hear Jamie Lee Curtis and she's coming out with a project in October, you immediately think of Halloween, right? She was the original Scream Queen, made her debut at 20 years old. She's the daughter of Janet Leigh, who was in Psycho. Like, she's legendary in her own right, where she got her start in horror, and then she did a lot of great movies like Fish Called Wanda, True Lies, all down the line. And now here she is, 60-something years old, and she's going to start popping into Star Wars. It's just pretty cool. I've always been a fan of hers. She's, again, that pattern we've been talking about. She's a very down-to-earth actress. Like, if you ever see her in interviews and hear about her charitable endeavors and her approach to things and how she looks at things, she's a very centered and down-to-earth person. And that's the culture I've been kind of connecting dots with all these people involved with The Mandalorian, from Gina Carano, who's more of a newcomer, all the way down the line to a Carl Weathers, who's like a veteran and that sort of thing. So I like it that she's being cast. And we have no idea what type of role. She could be like an Amy Sedaris, where she just pops in and she hangs out for a bit and then that's it. Or she could be a new villainess that's paired in with Moff Gideon. Like, who knows? But my guess is with her schedule and that type of thing, she got wind of it that they were interested, or she was a little bit interested. Again, maybe she talked to Rian Johnson and he's like, you know what? They're just bringing people in to do this show. Like, if you want to pop in and be in the show, you can do it. Maybe she's just doing a one-off cameo.
Multiple seasons of Scream Queens with Billy Lord.
Yeah, so there's that too. So, again, one of those things, kind of like Michael Biehn. It's nostalgic to me because I've always kind of been a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis's. So I'll be more than happy to see her pop up on screen in Mandalorian Season 2 if this winds up being true.
Lacey, why is this a terrible idea?
I think it's an amazing idea because I think I'm more excited about this than both Michael Biehn and Rosario Dawson. I think she's great. I loved her in Scream Queens. She was so funny. And she was really funny in Knives Out, too. Like, she has this very dark, dry humor that I think she would be great in The Mandalorian with. And that's why, like John said, I would love to see her as a villain. She'd be perfect. I also really love Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan. She's also very good in that.
She was good in that, yeah.
She's just so great. And like John said, she's so down to earth. She's so fun. And I could totally see this being like, hey, I want to be in Star Wars. And then she just emails Jon Favreau and is like, hey, I want to be in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I would do that if I had the power to do it. So good for her if that's what happened. Or if they probably reached out to her, because more likely that scenario. But yeah, no, this is so exciting. Again, just every time I hear an announcement about this season, I'm just more and more pumped that we're getting new Star Wars content, but it just sucks that we're getting it in October and not now.
Yeah. And also if we get it in October.
Yeah, I'm still, it's far enough away that I'm staying positive.
Doesn't it feel a little bit like, and again, I feel like every week a new Mandalorian news comes out, we kind of say the same things, but with a different Mad Libs added into the blanks. But It almost feels like someone is a fan of an actor, and they're like, "Do you want to come be in The Mandalorian?" Like, what if like Jon Favreau's a huge like Halloween fan, or what if like Dave Filoni loves like True Lies or something?
I
They're
feel like that's
"We
how
gotta see
Favreau
if-"
works, though, because he's openly
Yeah.
said that before. Like, "Oh, I've always loved so and so he decided to just figure something out."
Yeah.
Like he just seems
He's
like
like,
that
"Look,
type of guy.
We shoot in outside of LA.
Yeah.
It's an enclosed set. You come down for 4 hours. You knock out your part. You're in Star Wars. What do you think? And
I
like,
think-
all right.
yeah,
I'll
and
be
I-
there in a half hour.
Absolutely. And I think we got that idea from Bill Burr, because Bill Burr was like, "Oh, I was out with someone and Jon Favreau was there, and he came up to me and said, 'Hey man, you want to be in Star Wars?' And I was like, people would
Yeah.
hate that." And he was like, "No, it'd be great." He's like, "So
Yeah.
I'm in Star
Yeah.
Wars." Like that's
Yeah.
where that kind of conversation started. And I think that's how he's approached a lot of people with this project. And that's why it has this like family, like homegrown feel of like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you want to be in it? Cool. Let's be a part of this. Oh, you want to make models for the show? Okay, cool. Come on down."
Yeah.
That
yeah.
idea was absolutely there when we started hearing about Bill Burr, but I think where it really exploded was when we put on the first episode and we're like, "That's Horatio Sands. That's Brian Posehn." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
we're just
yeah.
pointing out people left and right that we had no clue were going to be in the show, never tied in. I mean, even later we're like, that's Jason Sudeikis is the speed a scout trooper or whatever, and it's just like it's so ridiculous. As the show just went on, we were getting hit left and right, so it's kind of crazy because it's almost like some of the people that we that are going to be in season 2 we don't even know about, and we won't know about it till their episode comes out, and that's just
Right.
nuts.
Big question. Are we going to get Vince Vaughn this season? Because I'm going to be honest, for weeks leading up to this, John kept being like, "Where do you think Vince Vaughn's going to pop up? Where do you think Vince Vaughn?" And I kept thinking in my head, okay, where is he going to show up? And he didn't. So do you think it's going to be this season?
I still think Vince Vaughn's going to be either like a card dealer or a bartender somewhere.
A bartender to me seems right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got to be, I mean, he's got to be in it. Right?
One would think.
He's like, hey, Mando, why don't we get hopped up and make some bad decisions? Mando's like, blang. Just he says that line in every movie. I don't know why he does, but he does.
You want a drink? How about I get you a drink? You want water? You want milk? You want what
Yeah.
do you want? What do you want? Yeah.
How about just the Sith, just for a second, just to see how it feels? Okay.
Oh, I was wondering how you were going to fit that in there.
Well, that's it for Resistance Report. We got a rundown led by a Scoundrel to do. So I'm gonna send it off to John.
Oh.
Me? Wow, we're going old school here, huh? Another
Yeah,
Vince
just
Vaughn movie.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
relive the old days.
All right, let me see if I got Chewie here. Found him. All right. On the count of 3, guys. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Punch it!
Punch it!
All right, guys. If you're watching or listening to this episode, you're probably a fan of what we do here on TRB. So if you'd like to access more exclusive content from us, you can join us right now at patreon.com/resistancebroadcast. Later on this month, we plan on rolling out some new bonus content on that page. In addition to the already 8 exclusive mini episodes, a monthly Q&A, polls, and other benefits that come with being a Resistance officer. There's 5 different tiers. Go check it out. Resistance broadcast. So patreon.com/resistance broadcast. If you were thinking about joining, now is definitely the time. We appreciate the support. If you like TRB swag, like our fun t-shirt designs, for the audio people, me and Lacey are showing off the shirts. I'm wearing I Am All the Jedi. Lacey's wearing our logo. Stay tuned, because we have some very exciting news coming. Maybe later this month, we're not sure, but it's coming. And they include some new designs, some revised designs, and other significant changes. So keep your eyes and ears out, but we'll make sure you know about it, let's be honest. Okay, last but not least, as always, tune into the Clone Wars fan show this Friday as James Bainey over here will rate, review, and discuss the 8th episode of the final season of the Clone Wars. So we are well into the second half of the last season, and that's been going well. James, you've been doing a great job, so make sure you guys are not only watching the Clone Wars, but hanging out with James after, which always posts shortly after the episodes on Fridays. And that is it for the Scoundrels Rundown. So we're going to send it to Lacey now. I forgot how to do the rundown exit. So, Chewie, my friend, get us out of here.
All right, guys, a little different this week. It's time for Resistance Transmissions.
On a Monday.
Yep, on a Monday. So,
That's crazy and wacky.
oh my gosh. So how this works is every week, John puts up a crazy, wacky situation, and you guys give your answers. And I've never read the situation, the scenario. I don't know what it is, and I don't know what your answers are. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, so the scenario, which I can already see has some interesting names that I'm going to slaughter, is
You got one consonant in.
Is it Figrin,
Yeah.
Don, and Modal nodes stop playing after Obi-Wan fights How do you say this?
Evazan.
Evazan. Ponda Boba.
Baba.
Baba.
All right. But resume playing the same song shortly after. What does Don say to the band to cue them to resume playing? Whew, that was a rough one.
You have to read it again.
Can you read it?
Yeah. Okay.
James.
So they're playing the right, and then Obi-Wan fights Ponda Boba, cuts off his arm, and all that other stuff, and then Figrin Dan needs to cue up the song again. He's like, "All right, let's take it from the top, start over, or whatever." What is he saying? What's conveying the idea to the rest of the band that they need to start over?
Because in A New Hope, they stop. The music stops, and then 5 seconds later, they just resume as though nothing happened.
James, you didn't read
That's
what the scenario is, but I loved your paraphrasing.
And is it Figrin Dan or Figrin Dion?
I thought it was Figrin Don.
I don't know. People in the comments will correct us, though.
It's okay. They correct me every week. I get every name wrong. It's all right. I've accepted it.
Yeah.
I think they're all right because no one's ever said it aloud. Right?
All right. Well, let's find out what he says to the band.
Yeah.
I just thought in my head, if a Don falls in the woods, does anyone know what it's called? Anyway, okay, first up is David Ladow at DM-123. And he said, "It's just Ponda Boba. F him, keep playing."
And he didn't say F. He said the real deal, but...
Oh, I said F because that's what's here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I changed it for the sake of the...
That's
PG
nice.
element.
That's good for you.
Smart
Okay,
move.
next is
she would have
Alex.
Ron Burgundied it.
I totally would have. Okay, next is Alex Brandt at Alex M. Brandt. Did you get his handle?
Sure.
Oh, I like this.
You know what? You said Stephen A. Bowman got his. So Alex
Yeah.
M. Brandt definitely got his.
Good job, Alex. I keep looking up. My camera's down here now.
Alex said, "Start back at the chorus on my pew."
Nice.
Does Lacey get it?
Pew, pew.
Yeah, I get it.
Shoot.
Okay, yeah. You
just didn't
kind of
like
had
it.
I'm unsure, but I'll laugh along.
Yeah.
No.
Gotcha.
Next is Dan something.
Dudich.
Dudich is how you say it.
I'll take it.
At HK47N Revan. And he said, "See, I was right. Drinks here do cost an arm and a leg." Well, at least an arm. All he was trying to do was get a rise out of Skywalker. Oh, God. And on that note, we'll get back at it we don't want to get in trouble with war. Is that how you say it? War?
Yeah.
And we're only getting paid scale. Dan, you really went for it with this one. And the caps really helped.
Is his
A lot
last
of
name
puns.
Dudica?
No, it's Dudich.
Dudich.
I know,
Yeah,
but it could be Dude.
Or it could be Dudich. Dudich.
Next
I'm
is
going with
Micah
the-
Harrison.
Like Micah.
At Micah X Machina. And Micah said, I almost never do this, but since it was his last request, and then starts playing Freebird.
Listen, a lot of bands get the shout out from the drunk people in the crowd to play Freebird.
I'm that person, and I'm not drunk. I just say it because I'm
James,
annoying.
did you ever get a Freebird shout out?
Not off the top of my head, but it's such an ongoing joke. You probably like, yeah, whatever. You know, it's
Next is Mello at A Grey Jedi, and Mello said, Done. I wonder if those guys cleared their browser history. From the top.
There it is. Genghis Dingus, the legend of Genghis Dingus.
Isn't it Genghis Dingus?
Genghis Dingus.
You said Genghis.
It is Genghis.
Since
We
when?
miss you,
I feel like
Genghis.
it's been Genghis.
Genghis,
Like
where
Genghis
are you?
Khan.
Genghis, where you
He's
been?
you know where he is? He's in the Hall of Fame. That's where Genghis is.
You don't have to be so aggressive about it. It's just be excited. Don't have to be aggressive. Next is Lang Lassiter at the Lang Lassiter. What do you do? He said, quick reminder, remember to tip your servers. Hit it, guys.
Yeah.
Those poor
I like
guys
how
So
have
he
to
thinks he
clean
didn't
up.
tip.
Yeah.
He thinks he lost his arm because he didn't tip. Can you imagine?
I thought it
love
was because he has
Lacey's
to clean
thing.
up the bar.
Lang Lassiter, the Lan Glassiter is what she said.
Is that not it?
No, it's
His
the
name is Lang
the
Lassiter.
Lang Lassiter. She said, we have Lang Lassiter at the Lan Glassiter.
And I said, what do you do? Because I was like, guys, I just recently watched, what is that show on Netflix where they blow glass? Blown away? Blown away. That's what it is.
Racy's
So this next tweet comes from Lacey Gillerin at Lacey Gillerin.
yeah. Or I think it like this next one's from Bob Therapist at Bob the Racist.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Or not
I'm
racist,
sorry, Lang. The at the Lang
rapist.
Lassiter.
All right.
Next is Ryan Davis-19 at Ryan Q Davis. And he said, wow, that was disarming. From the top, boys. Guys, I hate these jokes so much this week.
They're very punny.
Next is Trent at Old Republic Jedi. And he said, that's not what I meant when I said I hoped the patrons here would give us a hand for our performance.
Hey. This week is so good.
This is like John's dream right now.
Yeah.
Next is Matt Skywalker at MIB1188. And he said, and that's why I quit selling death sticks. Let's pick up where we left off. And a 1 and a 2.
Because people, they don't like being sold death sticks.
Oh, I thought it was because it's Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan was the person that did the death stick thing in prequels.
Right.
And last but not least is Rick Villanueva at Cad Bane's Bounty. And Rick said, welp, no arm, no foul. Mad about me on 3, and a 1 and a 2 and a 3.
Nice.
Guys,
No arm, no foul.
No arm, no foul.
this was a little too much for me.
That's good.
That was good.
If you want to be on the show, follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. And then John puts up some type of thing. I feel like he's just going to start asking for dad jokes. Really make me suffer. But yeah, I could slaughter your handle or your name. It's a good time. Back to you, John.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching and being a part of the Resistance. We appreciate it. Make sure you are subscribed to us. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, or YouTube if you're watching. Hopefully, you're noticing a better quality on video. We're hoping. If you've noticed that, we appreciate that. Leave a comment below with anything that you have in regards to thoughts on this episode.
Anything?
Anything.
Oh my goodness.
Anything.
We want to make sure you guys are also going to StarWarsNewsNet.com every day for your latest Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. All the articles that we talked about today were found via there. I wrote one of them, actually. Make sure you guys go to patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast, as we talked about earlier in the show. It's a way for you to support us additionally and also get additional content. We have 5 tiers starting at $2 a month, all the way up to the general tier. And as you may see on Thursdays, we have our generals appearing on the show on the Patreon Padres. But patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. If you're home more than often lately, and you want some more TRB content, that's how to do it there, and we appreciate all the support. And a special thank you to our generals, that is Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Reese, Micah Harrison, Tampa Movie Guy, Michael Gaines, and Val Trichkoff. Generals, thank you for all of your support. I promised this shout out here to Richard, who is a professor in New York. He's a member of the LGBTQ community who wrote a representation-based Star Wars fan fiction, which you can find at starwarsvoices.art.blog. So if you want to check that out, there's a link to it, and go check that out. So Richard, good luck with that. And you guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing and editing at StarWarsNewsNet.com. James?
You can find me at Myra Trunks, officially probably never at James Bainey now.
Why? What was the realization, James? They must know.
The realization that I always knew was that he was the guy who owns it's probably never going to give it up. But, yeah, you guys are ready for this, right? I am verified because of the band, and I found out that if I were to change my Twitter handle, it would lose my verification, which at this point now I would probably never get back. I mean, high hopes one day we all need to be verified as the official makers of Make Solo 2 happen in the Resistance broadcast, right? But
Yeah.
But as of now, I would lose my verification, which I'm like, well, then what's the point? At this point, I've done well with Myra Trunks, and it's probably going to stick there for a while then.
Right on. All right. Lacey, like me, not verified, but really good tweeter. So where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, people can find me not verified, but being awesome at Lacey Gillerin on Twitter and Instagram.
All right. Guys, thank you again so much. Please spread the word of the show. We've noticed people showing up to us, and we ask them once in a while, how did you hear about us? And they said, well, my friend told me about the show, or I heard it from someone at my work, and they watched it or listened to it, a relative. So believe it or not, you telling one person about the show can really help us out. So if you have a friend who likes Star Wars, they're stuck at home right now, we're all kind of hunkered down, and they're looking for more stuff to get into because they watched everything on Netflix and The Office 5,000 times, let them know about the Resistance broadcast, and we appreciate that. But until then, you guys will see us on Thursday, where we're going to have Clayton Sandell from ABC News back on the show with us. So we hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you Thursday morning with another episode right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.
Bye.